Hey guys, welcome to chessroots.com. This was a live game played between Caruana and Kramnik. The game I haven't finished. This was a Zurich Chess Championship 2011. Here Caruana is white and Kramnik is black. d4, knight f6, c4, e6, g3, c5. d5, e into d5, c into d5. The opening was played very fast. This is Benoni opening. d6, knight c3, g6, bishop g2, bishop g7, knight f3, castles, castle, rook e8. So till now the moves have been played many times in many games. Here Caruana just played bishop f4 and we are waiting for the remaining moves. See, let us see before bishop f4. This move looks really different to me. See, after rook e8, here most often we'll see a move like knight d2. Let us see this move, knight d2. The main idea of knight d2 is simply to prevent knight e4 or even bishop f5, and the other thing is to play knight c4 and push e4, f4 and e5. So this was a standard plan of Benoni opening. After knight d2, maybe knight d7 to prevent knight e5, knight c4. So a4, waiting for knight e5 to come knight c4 and knight a3. Later he can push f4, e4 and h3. So if we press knight e3, knight e5, then h3. Now the idea is simply to play f4 and keeps this knight on c4, and e4 also can be played later. So if we directly play for a4, we can directly play a6. The moves like knight c4, knight e5 and knight a3. Now the idea of h3, f4 and e4 with rook e1 with a good positional advantage for white. Black pieces are really cramped. The bishop on c8 is terribly bad, and this rook on b8 later comes with b5, but it is very bad right now. So both have their own chances. Instead of that, he simply played the move bishop f4. A very different new idea bishop f4 is having. Now bishop f4 initially preventing knight d7, but I think this position can still play knight d7 because of after bishop into d6 you can play more like queen b6. Let us see, for example, knight d7, bishop into f4, q b6, bishop f4 and queen into b2. I hope this won't really work for black, sorry, because the g2 bishop diagonal has been opened now, so I don't like to give this d6 pawn. But still he played yes, now Kramnik played here a4. After bishop f4 bishop f4, a6 and a4, h6 was played in the game. Okay, h6 is very good, very prophylactic move. He is not committing knight d7 or queen c7 to play knight d7 or something else. He simply wants the bishop on c8 for a good square, or like f5. Now the bishop f5 and sits on f5. He can even play like g5 and can keep this bishop a retreating square. Very good. h6, interesting prophylactic move. Now h6 I think cannot be stopped by playing g5. So the problem arises only with the bishop on f4. Now he gets the tempo. In the previous position there is no, for example, before bishop f4, if he played a move like knight d2, then knight d2 for example, then there is no h6. He can simply play a4 maybe, or even knight c4. If he plays a move like bishop f5, then you can simply play e4. Sorry, not e4. Knight c4. If you play moves like bishop f5, he can simply play a move like rook e1. Now he is threatening e4. Or else even in this position, he can simply play a move like e4 without a4, such that there will be no bishop f5. If you play bishop g4, then he can simply play f3, or even queen b6 or queen c7, queen b3 or queen c2 will also with good ideas. So, and if you play a move like knight d7, f4 is also possible. First simply play f4 maybe, a6 can be played with b4, a4, and b5 still is not there. So this will be a position where black will have some problems, where white is having a clear plan of knight c4, maybe rook e1, and push e5, activating this bishop diagonal, and later these 2 pawns are very big threat for black. So let us see the game what they have played. Okay, after bishop f4, he simply played second a6 and a4, h6, very good idea. Rook e1. Now if black won't play bishop f5, so if he allowed, he will simply play bishop f5. Now actually I'm waiting for black move to be played. Mostly he'll play bishop f5. The idea of h6 simply looks that he will play bishop f5. Okay, so fine. Now here he played bishop f5. See, before rook e1, there is no way that bishop f5 can be stopped. Say for example, if he play a move like knight d2, for example, now let us see, he can simply play g5, make this bishop move somewhere, bishop e3 maybe, and even knight g4 is also dangerous. Now bishop f5, he can retreat to bishop g6. So there are problems now with knight d2. So rook e1, bishop f5, rook, queen c1. Now is simply forcing to play g5. Yes, g5, bishop d2. Now he can simply retrieve his knight from knight d2, knight bd7. So this position came to a situation where both players need to be analyzed this game very thoroughly. So pause this position for some time, and I'll continue this game when I see remaining moves. Okay, after a small break, here he played h4. Caruana just want to activate this bishop. diagonal and this queen. So g4 was played, knight h2, king h7 supporting the pawn on h6. See, h5 will be somewhat mistake in view of this bishop g5. Looks very dangerous. On even bishop f4 is also fixed. So h5 looks a little somewhat uncomfortable. So he played king h7. Here Caruana played knight f1. The idea of knight f1 is simply wants to play bishop f4 and knight e3. Maybe knight e3, knight c4 and this d6. Knight e5. Yes, bishop f4 was played in the game, and bishop g6. This bishop g6, just maybe he wants to keep this bishop alive in the game. So let us just to keep away from attack by playing e4. So bishop g6, knight e3, h5, a5. In view of the fixing this b7 pawn pad, and also now he's threatening knight c4, maybe bishop and knight, something like knight a4, knight b6 is also possible. So let us see what white will play. Queen c7, rook a4. Here the idea of queen c7 is simply to play knight d7, maybe either of these knights to d7 and c4, knight c5. This was the standard plan, one of the standard plan in the Benoni opening. Black usually tries to counter with c4, knight d7, knight c5. Rook a4. The other idea is also to prevent knight c4. Sometimes if he played, he can even now play knight c4 and close this bishop in knight c4, knight e4, bishop e4. So king g8. This position, king g8, black really don't have any good moves to play. He was just waiting for white to commit something else. Queen d2, knight fd7. Here I think white can play more like bishop e4, because just now knight has left to d7. The idea of bishop e4 is simply to exchange the strong bishop on g6, and other is to come at least like bishop d3, and maybe knight c4 is also good at that position. At least this bishop will be doing something in this diagonal rather than sitting idle at g2. So rook a2 is equally good. White is just trying to provoke something for black, maybe to commit some mistake. Here black played b5, committed as come. So a into b6, queen into b6. Now he played bishop e4. White simply wants to exchange the strong bishop on g6. Bishop into e4, knight into e4, knight g6. Here I think white gave an interesting exchange sacrifice. Knight into d6, knight into f4, and knight ec4, attacking the queen, and he can grab with this queen into f4. So knight h3 check. Remember, this knight on h3 is trapped. It's very bad, but black is still having an exchange ups, but still he will lose this knight. This knight really don't have any good square. King h1 was played in the game. Queen b8, knight into e8, queen into e8. It's white waiting for white moves to be played. So till now I think from move 25 the remaining moves till 31, these all moves are really forced, and there is no way that white or black can do nothing much about that moves. So queen c2, interesting. Queen c2, you simply want to play queen f5, queen into h5. Maybe he wants to transfer this. There is no queen d3 in view of simply he will exchange with knight e5. Queen d3, knight e5 can be little, so he will exchange this knight on c4. So queen c2, knight e5. Now he can play knight d6, queen d7, knight f5, bishop f8, knight e3, supporting the d5, c4. Simply wants to play bishop c5, queen f5. After bishop c5, there is no much options for white, so he simply captured queen into queen f5. Now queen into h5 is threatened, so black should capture this f5, knight into f5, bishop b4, rook d1. The knight on h3 is still trapped, so there is not much worries for white in this position. a5, rook a1, f6, rook a c1, bishop c5. He played knight d4. This is also, I think, this is the only move in view of if he plays a move like e3. There is a big weakness on f3 square and d3 square, which is not really good for white. So he simply blocked this diagonal and also preventing this retrieve square of this knight by playing knight d4. After knight d4, king f7, king g2, rook b8, rook c2, rook v4, d6, rook b6, knight f5, bishop into f2. So here if we push knight into f2, it will be a big mistake by playing a d7 check. It will be a big mistake. So he play d7, maybe d7. Knight into d7 is forced. Rook into d7, king e6, and rook h7. King into f5, rook into h5, king g6, and rook into c5. So there is no way that he can capture with knight into f2. In view of that, he can move this knight, so it will be a big mistake. So he can capture with bishop into f2, d7, knight into d7, rook into d7, king e6, rook h7, king into f5, rook into h5, king g6, rook into e5. Now the position is practically it's equal. Now there is no way that white or black can hardly win this game. This knight on h3 is trapped, or else black would have some chances to try this win a game. Here he played rook b4, rook a6, bishop d4, rook c6, bishop into b2, rook in 6 into c4, rook into c4, rook into c4, king h5. Okay, here both players agreed for a draw. Seems like this position is really equal to a draw. This was a very good game played between Caruana, Fabiano and Vladimir Kramnik in Zurich Chess Championship 2013. Hope you enjoyed this game. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave comments. See you in the next game.